Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. This is Spirit Journey. Yes, it's about 1:12 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I just felt a desire to do another live stream. And it's actually, well, I'm in my room right now, and I have the lights off, and my tablet cannot film in the dark. And I just feel more comfortable to have the lights out. But I still wish to do the video, the live stream. And I want to share some thoughts that I have regarding, as the title says, do you think it's time for the British royal family to dismantle? And I came to a conclusion. But I first want to share some things with a video that I was watching. I think about 2 or 3 videos. And it just reaffirmed in me my opinion. Now, again, this is nothing against the general population of Britain. I've met people from Britain, and they were very nice to me. But I think living in America, and my being a black woman living in America, born and raised here, and the propaganda that I learned under a system that's based on Britain. Now, to me, the British royal family represents to me, growing up, about oppression, about inferiority, about being privileged, about that you can't do anything wrong, and about power. I think of all these things. I think about how the mobility that they have to go to different countries, to do virtually what they want to do. Now, the videos that I saw, I first watched about 2 videos just by chance about the late Bob Marley, the famous reggae star. His music and the style of music is international. It is played all over. Bob Marley was from Jamaica. He's actually, it's downplayed, but he's actually the byproduct of a black woman and a white man. Now, in the documentary, it said that the parents were married. Yes, hello, viewer. Good morning. Good early morning. Yes, you could. Yes, the screen is black right now. I'm. The lights are off in my room, and so it's not able to take a picture of me. But either way, I hope you enjoy this live stream, and I hope you can hear me well. So either or. Now, even though, well, oh, what I was going to say about that it was an interracial union. Now, the documentary on Bob Marley, they used the term that the husband. Now, I don't know whether they were being polite, whether it was a legal marriage, or they mean a marriage meaning that it was a physical union that resulted in an offspring. So those of you who know, you could write it in the comment section whether Bob Marley's parents were actually married. But either way, in the documentary, they said that the woman, Bob Marley's mother, left and moved to this part of town, really rough, Povertyville. And she did what she had to do to support her child. And Bob Marley got into music. He first had he was learning something else, and then he decided to get into music. But what I started thinking about regarding the parentage of Bob Marley, that he didn't have privilege. Jamaica is an island. It's a commonwealth of Britain. And at the time of Bob Marley's birth, he was born in 1945. It was still a colony of Britain. Now it's a commonwealth, so it's supposed to be independent, an independent nation, but it is a commonwealth of Britain today. So Britain still has certain controls over that island, but it's still considered a separate nation from Britain. I'm not sure what year they got their independence from Britain. It could have been around the early 1960s, and if anyone knows, you could just put that in the comment below. So Britain is very class conscious and color conscious. Your class and the color of your skin, unfortunate, has an influence about making money, earning a living, and your status. So even though he's a product of a white man, now I don't know whether the white man is a white Jamaican or he came directly from Britain and lived there. That I don't know, and if anyone knows, you could also add that information in the commentary section. But I was angered that a white man, and he had some status on the island. They said that he was respected, the Bob Marley's father, but there was virtually in the documentary really no real information about his parents, why they separated, and what the father did to help raise his son. It's like there's no connection. And even though 1945 is post-slavery from Jamaica, but still the relationship between white men and black women on the island, it's still reminiscent of slavery, that they may have sexual unions, white men have sexual unions with black women, but do not support their children. Yes, hello, viewer. Welcome, welcome. Yes, this is Spirit Journey. And yes, the screen is blackened, but I am here, and I hope could still enjoy the live stream. And to let you could say hello in the chat room, so I could say hello. I was talking about Bob Marley and his growing up and his biracial heritage. And even though he had this heritage, he did not benefit from that heritage, and that it was reminiscent of slavery days in Jamaica. Even though the documentary said that his parents were married, they used the term husband. That could be just a euphemism, meaning that they had a sexual union, but not a legal marriage. And that he lived in poverty, Bob Marley. And there was virtually no connection between Bob Marley and his white father. And it irritated me about that. But it's really interesting that even though that he had that heritage, he wanted out becoming a musician and talk about world justice for black people in particular and other nations that are being oppressed by white people. He was very conscious, and he later adopted the Rastafarian religion. I was amazed about that because I really didn't know about um, his heritage. And you know what else that I didn't know about him? That there were two attempts on his life. He got shot twice on two separate occasions. The island has so much politics and factions, and that they were afraid that because Bob Marley became an international favored reggae artist, and they were afraid that his influence over the people of Jamaica to sway votes from one opponent to another. And so they attempted to murder him. It's pathetic. Had no idea about that, but I thought that was really pathetic. But it was really interesting though. And he died a relatively young man. He was about 36 years old. He died in 1981. And I remember he died of cancer, Bob Marley. He did use alternative medicine initially, and it didn't work. And he decided to just move back home to Jamaica in his final years. But he wasn't able to. I guess his health really declined very quickly, and he couldn't take the plane from Miami to Jamaica, and he actually died in Miami, Florida. But his body was brought to Jamaica, and he received a very, very, a lot of people came to his funeral. But either way, I think about that. I think about, like in the documentary, they showed where Bob Marley lived. And then I watched another video on Jamaica and the Rastafarian movement, which started in Jamaica. And they showed different areas. The Rastafarian movement started in a very poor section of Jamaica. It thrived in a particular region on the island that was economically deprived. And they showed the region, and I didn't know. I mean, I know every country, including the US, where I live and where I was born and raised. I didn't know that Jamaica had areas of that type of poverty. I knew that it had poverty, just like the US, but I didn't know that what their poverty looked like. And I said to myself, look at this. You have a man called Bob Marley, born of an interracial union, and then not being taken care of financially by his white father, and it forced him and his mother to move away from the father and live in the slums. And it's like such a detachment on, detachment from black people. And that I know you have wealthy, wealthy people that live on Jamaica. And yes, you do have wealthy black people that live on Jamaica, that live in Jamaica. But in comparison, I would imagine that the whites that live on that island have more money. And I notice like the development of the land, that even though slavery is gone, the resources that the descendants of these people who were enslaved, I don't want to call them slaves, but that they were enslaved, and how the labor of the black Jamaicans or mixed race Jamaicans, that the skills that was done made other people rich, but not them. And so even after slavery, even though they had skills, they were still in poverty, and that their oppressors, they were not punished. So again, their labor and energy was funneled away from the black communities of Jamaica and into the hands of their oppressors. And being that Jamaica is a commonwealth, all that resource, where does it go? Who does it really feed? Yes, hello viewer, welcome, welcome. This is Spirit Journey Just Talking. And yes, the screen is blackened out, but I hope you can still enjoy. I'm just talking about my thoughts about the British royal family. I asked the question, is it time for the British royal family to dismantle the whole system. And I was first discussing about Bob Marley, who is from Jamaica, and Jamaica is currently a Commonwealth of Britain, and how that Bob Marley's upbringing, that his father did not support him and his mother, and they lived in poverty, and that the descendants of the people who were enslaved on that island have not really benefited, even though the slavery had ended. And the documentary that I was watching today, about two documentaries on Jamaica, one on Bob Marley and the other on the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica. And I was surprised because they showed what some of the areas of Jamaica looked like, and I was stunned about the poverty that they showed on certain parts of that island. And yes, some parts are very expensive, but the poverty of Jamaica was unbelievable in comparison to other places that I've been. Poverty is in every country. I don't want to, this is not about embarrassing people that live on that island because they have pride in themselves. Okay? So it's not about trying to shame anyone, especially the poor of Jamaica. Okay, that's not my reason of mentioning about the poverty there. But that you have a history in Jamaica about the slavery that used to exist there, but even after post slavery, what happened in what happened on the island, that Britain had brought in other immigrants from Asia, and these people were used to destabilize the former enslaved people. So here, these newcomers that didn't do the bulk of that heavy work that made Jamaica at one point a very rich island for the white people, now is being shared that wealth with the new immigrants, primarily from Asia, and that the remaining blacks there are living in poverty. But of course, you do have black Jamaicans or mixed race Jamaicans that are doing well. So that was my first impression regarding to answer the question about the should is it time for Britain to dismantle. So I'm seeing this scenario, seeing a people that aren't still isn't really reaping the wealth that that land has. It the soil is very rich. And then they talked about the how the Rastafarian movement began. Now, it it's something that seemed to come about because of the emotional pain that the black people have on that island. And they wanted something to give them a sense of hope and pride, even though the blacks are a majority on that island, to my understanding. But they are definitely the majority of poverty there. So I felt that the interviewer that was talking about the Rastafarian movement was making fun. They were interviewing Bob Marley. It was a white woman interviewing Bob Marley, and she was criticizing the Rastafarian movement because they smoke marijuana. They use the term ganja, referring to marijuana. Now I'm thinking, like Bob Marley gave a very, very good retort to the woman. The woman I thought was just a prejudiced white woman, and she's poo pooing the faith system of this group. And I'm thinking about this marijuana, that is just a plant, and that this plant probably existed before people came on this planet. A plant is a plant, and the plant does have medicinal purposes. And in the Rastafarian movement, and no, I'm not a Rastafarian, and I've never done marijuana, never. But either way, you have people that do use that um, plant in their worship of their Rastafarian religion, including Bob Marley, who converted to Rastafarianism. And it said that he smoked a pound of it. I forget whether they said a pound a month or a week, but either way, that's a lot, in my opinion. But either way, he smoked it, and you have many people of that faith system that smokes it. Now, that plant is not an evil, but when it became criminalized, you can make apples criminalized, you know, to make it become criminalized. And then when you criminalize something, that seems to attach negativity and negative behaviors. So a natural product, and then you put a status of um, to, that it's something that's illegal to use. It creates, when you do that, it creates an added harm onto people. It's not the drug that kills, people kill. The drug is innocent. So it's like, so you have someone who's using this form of expression in their religious tradition, and they being poo-pooed on. The people, the faith system, and they also mention that they were rounding up Rastafarians in Jamaica and imprisoning them. It was really something. I had no idea about that. I did used to live in the Caribbean, not in Jamaica, but on another island, the island of St. Thomas, briefly, for about 3.5 years. That was in 1990. And yes, people who wore dreadlocks were disliked on that island. You find in general the English speaking islands of the Caribbean is very, very conservative. They are a very religious people, primarily of the uh, Protestant or Catholic religions. Very conservative. And anything contrary to this religiosity is considered bad. And so the dreadlocks is a symbol of this Rastafarian movement, which is considered bad. So even back in 1990, here in dreadlocks, whether it's kept up nice, or not, you were not liked and not trusted. So you have an innocent people who's being despised, who are starting to be rounded up. And I think that someone was mentioning that they should be killed. And so you had on Jamaica people who were Rastafarians cutting off their dreads because they were afraid to be murdered by the government there of Jamaica, which I didn't know. And so you start to think, wow, you have someone, a group that's being victimized and being considered almost like villains. Okay. My other thought is this in going to explain what I think about should the British royal family be dismantled. So there's new news about when I heard what's going on in Britain. Now, many of you have heard about this Jeffrey Epstein in the United States. He was found dead in his jail cell. I think it could be close to 2 months now. Well, he knew Prince Andrew of Britain, of the royal family, the son of Queen Elizabeth II. Now, my thoughts about him and the whole institution. People, it's really weird, but like you have the women, the aristocratic women and the royalty of Britain. The women in particular are instructed very keenly how they are to dress, extremely, and that they have what's called finishing schools. It's in Switzerland. I'm not sure how long the school is, but it's not very long. And I'd like to find out exactly what they learn. But they learned about, I guess, to like polish their image, to prepare for royal life or aristocracy lifestyle. But I never heard them say anything about men going to these schools, but women only. So this is a sexist, it seems to suggest sexism against women. It's putting a very, very high standard upon the women that they are to look and carry themselves because the women give the elegance and a veneer of royalty of the royal house of Europe and aristocracy. It puts that sparkle, the illusion of power with those two classes of people, aristocracy and the royal house of Britain. And I'm thinking also about Princess Diana. I know I sound like I'm going all over the place, but everything is going to all come together to form my answer. Princess Diana, she was part of the aristocracy, and actually she had an American grandmother, and when this grandmother died, Princess Diana received an inheritance of approximately $1 million. And she used that $1 million to buy a, an apartment or what they call a flat there in Great Britain. And she lived very basically modestly. She lived with other women and she remained a virgin because she said that she knew she had to be, as she worded it, tidy down there. because she seemed to know that she was born to marry high up in the British royal family. And as you all know, that yes, she did marry into the British royal family. She married Prince Charles. So it was something with Prince Charles that Prince Charles, like Prince Charles could not marry Camilla. I forget her last name, but Carmela, because she was married. She was still married, and I think she might have been married twice, even. I'm not sure about that, but he couldn't marry a divorcee, or if she got a divorce and if her husband was still alive, that Prince Charles could not marry her still. So he seemed to like the royal family was trying to encourage him to hurry up and get married. And so he put a very high expectation, a requirement. And in modern times, to request that she be a virgin, and because now many people are have have different lifestyles than their own parents. I'm trying to be very tactful here. And so it would be very, more challenging for that requirement and other requirements he had. So I think he was really trying to um, um, give him more time to be single. Well, they found her, Princess Diana, and Princess Diana, even had to have a gynecological examination for her to qualify to even marry him. But in the meanwhile, he was having an affair with Carmela. Okay? So he's going to require her, you know, Diana, to be a virgin, but yet he wasn't a virgin. See, so you hear what I'm saying? So it's a double standard between men and women in the royal house, that they require such high status, high requirements of behavior, I meant to say, publicly upon women. But the men are encouraged to be playboys. Look at Prince Harry. He was walking around one day at a party and dressed in a Nazi uniform. He was involved with drinking and doing drugs. Okay. But they didn't really, it was just something, they wanted to hush it up, and they were embarrassed that photos were taken of him naked at a party in Nevada in the United States. But there was no real reprimand and shaming of him. See that? So again, it's like a double standard about conduct. It wants its women to look perfect, hair perfect, nails perfect, pantyhose perfect. All these requirements for the woman. And again, the women are supposed to go to the finishing schools in Switzerland to polish their image even more, but not the men, as far as I know. I've never heard of men going to finishing school. And it answers that obviously they're not going, the guys, and that's why they're messing up. Or maybe it's just what do you call it, male supremacy that's being done there on the island. I mean, in Great Britain. So this Prince Andrew now, okay, he befriends this Jeffrey Epstein, who I just mentioned earlier, that he was found dead in his cell, and that he was being held in jail, awaiting a trial for his alleged human trafficking and utilization of teenage girls for prostitution and to use them to blackmail the rich and powerful on this planet. All different types of people utilized his services. And so even Prince Andrew, who met Jeffrey Epstein in 1999, and then there was Jeffrey Epstein's trial some years back, this Prince Andrew continued to associate with Jeffrey Epstein, who was being held in jail for this sex trafficking and having sex with minors. And so they even found video footage of him spending time in Jeffrey Epstein's home in New York City. And that there were young girls in this video, two young girls exiting. And you see at one point him at the door was partially open, and he seemed like he didn't want people to know that he was there. How he, like being very cautious, making sure no one saw him. But there was some type of hidden camera that was filming Jeffrey Epstein's home at the time. And now this Prince Andrew is denying that he didn't know anything about what was going on in that house, and that it it that the behavior of Jeffrey Epstein was no human being, something like that, should go through that. Something with the word human being. And then what came to my mind at that time when he said that it's horrible and inhumane, and I was thinking, well, maybe he did those things and thought it was okay because those girls aren't human beings to him, right? Because he's upper class. Excuse me, because he's upper class, he's royalty, and anyone who's not royalty is maybe not considered human. So it's easy for him to do what he did. And evidence seems to point that he knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and that he participated allegedly in these activities with teenage girls. So this angers me, again, the double standard, and that it seems like the British royal family is protecting him. And if he were anybody else, he would probably be, what's that word? When the government takes somebody, extradited, I think it's called. and put on trial. Because what he did in American soil, and part of this trafficking, possibly. He's having sex with these girls, it seems to suggest, with the video. And someone who's hiding out now in Russia, who's taking political asylum to live there because he has some very sensitive videos. And I think some of those videos are actually with Prince Andrew. And so he can't run away and hide for long, it seems, this Prince Andrew. He has to come clean. And people are just covering for him, including the Queen, because the Queen is the head of the royal family. And she, being a woman, should insist that his son come clean. She should, as a woman. But they're not going to do that. She's not going to insist that he be interviewed by the ABC agencies in America. They're not going to insist on it. And so I hold this QE2 responsible in part for all this. That you requires so much, the institution requires so much of women to be perfect, but yet their male counterpart can do anything and get away with it and even maintain their status of acceptability. And that I'm appalled at. I'm appalled that you have a system that prizes itself for perfection, order, and protocol. And even when he first met him, and then the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein some years back, the first time, that he continued seeing him. Yet the Queen Elizabeth did not intervene and say, look, that guy got arrested for soliciting an underage girl for sex. You better not associate with that fool. But no, I doubt that ever happened. See that? So they'll poo-poo the general population. They poo-poo historically black people for being beneath them. Yet these people, this royal institution, is infamous for many, many things, according to the Englishman David Icke, who wrote extensively on the British royal family. And so I become angry at a system that allows all this pomp and circumstance, all these rituals, and it doesn't mean anything. Because when push comes to shove, these people have a lot of skeletons in their closets, imposing on you, judging you because maybe you don't hold your fork or knife the same way that they do, that they don't eat the same type of foods, and that they are excluded from certain environments, certain activities, special events people are excluded from. But in the meanwhile, all this filth they're doing behind the scene, requiring you, the girls, to be virgins at one time, but the boys don't have to be anything. See that? It's a disrespect for women. So maybe that is a sign why Queen Elizabeth II really doesn't care about women either, even though she is the head. She's just playing her part in the whole system of the royal house and aristocracy. They want to uphold it, this system. But I'm thinking now, I'm trying to put all these pieces together. I know that it's a little all over the place. So again, the first part that I mentioned in this live stream about Bob Marley, his parentage, and him not being taken care of by his white father, and he lived in poverty, and that slave master mentality that some British people have against black people. And then the island is impoverished. And of course, yes, they have wealthy black people in Jamaica, but it's doing very horrible, Jamaica. And it's doing so badly in Jamaica that the young men are prostituting, being male prostitutes for men, and primarily white men that live in Jamaica and the white tourists that come to Jamaica. Okay, they're that desperate for money. So, and this angers me because they're doing it because, not because they're attracted to them, they're doing it because they want money to live. And the poverty and post slavery, these descendants of people who were enslaved are not benefiting from the wealth that island generated for white people. And then now the Asians have been moved in to destabilize blacks more post slavery, and now they are getting wealthier and wealthier. So this angers me at that island and the system that is oppressing the people. And even though the people of Jamaica form a religion, and then they're being poo-pooed on, and the criminalization of Rastafarians and criminalization of marijuana use amongst these people. And then I mentioned about the British royal family, that Prince Andrew is associating with a known individual, Jeffrey Epstein, who um, was put on trial for what we call soliciting sex from an underage girl. He's considered a pedophile. And yet, even after that arrest, this Prince Andrew stayed in his home several times. And so, this double standard that they could do anything, and then with, again, as I mentioned about Prince Charles, demanding that his wife, that he married, his first wife, which was Princess Diana, that she has to be a virgin. And then in the meanwhile, he's having an affair with Camilla. So this angers me. And then you do have a lot of West Indians that live in Britain. And the poverty and the disrespect even distribution of wealth amongst the blacks that live in Britain or in its commonwealths. And I'm disgusted. Why should your wealth be funneled into this royal family's um what's that term? Their 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 wealth. So they get stronger and stronger, the royal family and the selected aristocracy of that place. But you're shunned out. So I ask myself, if they are not serving you and your needs, why should you support them? Shouldn't you support people that support you? And you know that the British royal family, they are the head of the Episcopal, I think called the no, I'm sorry, the Anglican Church. Now, what type of church allows this conduct? So again, this religious system is just to control you, yet behind the scenes they're doing notorious things according to some of these um, news footage. So again, you have hypocrisy. You have people who have immense wealth, yet its former colonies and its commonwealth are living in poverty. And I think it's awful. So I think people of the Commonwealth and people living in Britain should really reevaluate this hypocrisy upon of this family, the British royal family, and their lack of how do you say of living with a high standard of ethics. They seem to have no ethics, and the Queen is not insisting on purging out that which is wrong and covering up for her son, Prince Andrew. So, I think with all this information and the history of that country, I think the Commonwealth and the people living in Great Britain should really reevaluate whether this royal family should be dismantled. Shouldn't they start considering you're not living up to the standards of the Anglican Church? You don't reprimand your children, Prince Charles's behavior, committing adultery, and could have given his wife, Princess Diana, a sexual transmitted disease. You never know. Endangering her life by his reckless behavior. And then you have also Prince Andrew and his alleged getting involved with underage girls. At least he stayed in his house and you had young girls coming out of the house and he saying goodbye. Right? This is despicable. And if Prince Andrew is saying that what Jeffrey Epstein did was despicable, but yet he chose, this Prince Andrew chose to stay. You know, a bird and a feather flock together, as it said. And so I feel very strongly about this, strong about the legacy of the of slavery, of the racialistic thinking and bias against black people, against people from Australia, the indigenous people of Australia, I forgot to mention. They were doing a genocide against the indigenous people of Australia. And again, Australia was a colony of Britain, and Britain still has a stronghold over that island because it's now a commonwealth. But they still have to curtsy when the Queen goes and visit. So still control over them. And all over the world, the bulk of their commonwealth, they're not really treated with respect. And it will also make more sense to me. I said, okay, you took control over these territories or commonwealths, but you notice that they never marry people of the commonwealths and have them blended into the royal family. No, it's a complete separation. They have no involvement in marriage with the people of color of the commonwealth. None of it. So this is saying also that they don't want you to have you assimilated into fully the British system and people, and to keep it separate. And the wealth, when I think of the wealth that the British royal family has, it has accumulated for several hundred years, such opulence. And in fact, the Queen Elizabeth II, when she had a resident that burnt down, and she didn't even get what do you call it, insurance for her house. And so she requested for the British people to pay for her own private residence rather than she paying it out of her pocket or having house insurance. See that? It's an expectancy for people to give to this institution, but not give back. They don't give back to the masses. So again, it's one-sided, and I think it's outdated. The whole system is outdated, and they're relying on the public to pay for their activities of extravagance. And it's really to, how do you say, use this mental warfare to show the people of the Commonwealth that they are still masters over them. Well, I think these Commonwealths should say enough is enough and don't have them come there. A total separation from them and no longer finance their activities, and to really reevaluate the longevity of the royal house. They really need to start evaluating whether to keep the system. Personally, I think that they should dismantle them and that they should be required to give reparations to the people that they have oppressed and genocided. That's what I think, that their wealth, a bulk of their wealth, is from the harm and the mistreatment of the indigenous people of the planet. I think they should be required to pay reparations to the people of the West Indies, and also including the United States because it started out with the 13 colonies of Britain, and so they should get the American blacks should get reparations from them also. So those are my thoughts. And so I would like you to share your thoughts, what you think about what I proposed, or I should say my opinion. Again, this is just an opinion and not to make a proposal, but just share my opinion, what I think about the Royal House of Britain and whether they should dismantle. Well, I think if the Queen wants to save face, because I think this scandal with Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew is really going to really blow up, and her being a woman and not demand the safety of these women, I think people should really evaluate such a system that's abusing their power and hiding and covering up this pedophilia. Just, it's awful. So those are my thoughts. So yes, you can write your comment below, and definitely share this live stream with friends and family members that you think would appreciate this audio. And those of you who like this content and my channel, if you would consider donating to my PayPal me account, the link is on my channel on the right side of the banner of my channel, Spirit Journey. And whatever what your heart moves you to give, I thank you in advance for doing such. Yes, thank you so much for all your support, for listening to this live stream, which is very important to me. Yes, the British royal family represents a, a hypocrisy that's based on white supremacy, that's based on hatred against black people in particular, that does harm historically and does mental games upon the people when they go and visit. They're visiting the what you call the Commonwealth, not because they love the people, but to remind the people that they are still in control over the people of that domain. And I call that mental warfare of oppression. Yes, I do. Yes, I know not all British people are like the royal family. I've met some people from Britain that are very nice. But it's the hypocrisy of the British royal family and the possible cover up by the family, including the Queen Elizabeth II a cover up. I'm sick of it. And I feel because of all these things that I mentioned and more, that it may be time for them to dismantle and give reparations to all of its former colonies, to the people who were enslaved by them. So thank you for listening, and may you have a wonderful, wonderful morning, okay? Take care and enjoy your evening. Bye bye.